Good God evening. I want you to get a pen, get you some tea or whatever, a blanket, chill, and listen in. I began to think about this subject. I want to put this out here, and I pray that you would share it. I'm going to share it with certain people, especially for those that aren't ready. Remnant call. I'm just sitting here chilling, and I started to think about, situations in my life and where I've been and where some of you might be right now. I'm listening to in my meditation, I'm listening to worship piano music, and this particular one is called Atmosphere of His Presence. And some of us may be dealing with a presence that is not from God. And so, Father, I pray that they would hear what the Spirit is saying today. I pray for your strength today. I pray for encouragement. Psalms 31 and 24 says, "Be strong and take heart, all of you who hope in the Lord." And I know that something that may be said today that will bring hope to you. It certainly did to me as I began to go through something that, I believe that a lot of us may be facing today. And so I want to break down the anticipatory fear and also to talk about anxiety because this is one of the spirits that's been really attacking a lot of people today. But I want to not talk about that just first without first giving my son, Ty, and his name is Tyrone. He preferred to be called that by people, but I call him Ty because his mom, some friends call him Ty. But I want to get into this main thing. I had an incident, and I'm not going to talk about the full incident, but it had to do with me falling. Okay. And I really had been dealing with this for a while, but I know that God doesn't give us the spirit of fear. And so when the incident happened, along with Prophet, I want to make sure I give him kudos too, who was trying to give me advice about it. And I, at first, like all of us, this is something that we all say, I don't have the spirit of fear, I have love and sound mind and all of that. But I want to kind of just give us an opportunity to kind of talk this through, to kind of describe these differences and to talk about what a normal fear is, because it's not the same thing as the spirit of fear. And so what they said to me was this, Mom, and then Prophet said, Dr. Murphy, you probably are dealing with maybe you fear of a thing. And so, like Evangelist Donna talked about a thing last night in our prayer call, a thing is very important for us to know. A thing is usually something that we want to look at or try to conquer, or a thing to have, or a thing to do. But as I begin to think about things and issues and situations in our lives, now this is going to be more than one part. So I'm going to jump off of here. I'm hoping I don't be on here no more than 15 minutes. But the fear of falling was my deal. I have a fear that I'm constantly fighting, the fear of rats. I say that I have because we have to watch over our words. I'm facing, let's put that word, I'm facing because I don't have this, because I know that with God I can do all things. But the fear of falling was something I was facing. The fear of rats, the fear of drowning, the fear of heights, and the fear of arguments to some people. You may be going through, or you fear, lack, scarcity. We've been talking about in our calls. But, these don't automatically mean the same thing. It doesn't mean that we have a spirit of fear. Some of these are human fear responses, and some of these may come from trauma responses. Some of these may be specific phobias. And yes, sometimes people can become bound by fear, though. And it's a pretty bad thing, where they don't want to go outside. They fear in being crowds of people. And it becomes something that rules their thinking in a way that they feel oppressive. They feel a challenge. But these are different things that I want to talk about in this series. So let me break this down first before I get into the part on the fear of this part that I'm going to be sharing on these two types. The first thing I want to say is thank God that you chose to listen to this, because I'm breaking down so you can understand why people are ready to quote that when they know, like myself, I was having the fear of falling. Listen to me. and I fell. But the normal fear is not the same as a spirit of fear. So, normal fear, as I said before, is a human emotion. God created us to protect us. We're going to have some so fear of stepping too close to the cliff, or fear of touching fire, fear of a dangerous dog, or falling. As an older person as I am, older in age number, but I believe that I'm still graced to be able to move around because our bones get fragile and they break easier. So, of course, I'm going to have the fear of falling, but it's the body warning you in a sense. That's what it's doing, to be careful. This is not a sin. This is not a demon. This is not a mental illness. Proverbs 22:3 says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself." That means wisdom sees danger and it responds. So you fear something, like I said thing. So you have a fear, me, of falling as an older adult. And it's partially awareness is what that is. I'm staying aware. I'm staying very, but we'll get to it in one of these parts about this part that I'm going to teach in a minute that you see there in the title here. But I keep an awareness. It's a protective concern. And that's not an automatic spirit of fear. Some may be different. You can keep that to yourself, because I'm not interested in what you're thinking. I'm telling you what I got a revelation about right now in the atmosphere that I am with this music playing, the atmosphere of his presence, to make sure that we understand. But the spirit of fear, let's get there. The 2 Timothy 1:17. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, right? But of power and of love and of a sound mind. Paul is not talking about a normal caution. He's talking about a fear that controls us, that torments our mind, that paralyzes us. We can't move. We don't want to do anything. Or we fear failing, fear of rejection, intimidation, something that overwhelms us, that steals our peace, so to speak. And it shuts down faith. It shuts down our normal reasoning that God has given us. This kind of fear behaves like a dominating type of force of a spirit. So it says to us, you can't do that. Or I wouldn't say that. Or they're gonna find out about that. Don't go over there. You're gonna, something bad's about to happen. Or you will fail. You're not gonna make it. Don't you make that move. You need to hide. Okay. Oh my God. You need to panic, because guess what? This can happen. This is a ruling type of fear. It rules the mind. Instead of informing the mind, it rules the mind. So in the psychological terms, as I'm speaking now from a counselor therapist, one that deals with the mind. So psychological term, there's different types of fear. So it's important for us to know the types. So I'm going to share some of this. Well, I'm going to have to give you more than one part of this so you can break this down so you can understand. You can quote that all you want, as I don't have the spirit of fear when I actually was dealing with the fear of falling. I already broke that down to you. So the psychological term for the different fears, the first one I'm going to give you now is a specific phobia. Okay. So I have this phobia of rats. Okay. And I'm going to say I'm facing it. Okay. If I see a rat, they can have a whole house. But this phobia is an intense fear because I was traumatized as a little girl. We had big rats in our house. And once they was killed or whatever, my brothers used to chase with me after those rats, with those rats, throwing them at me, the dead rats. So I had a bad challenge there. So this specific object or thing that you may be in your situation, I don't know what yours is. To be fear of rats or mice, it's called musophobia. And that's MUSO, P like Paul, HO, B like boy, IA. Musophobia. Okay. That's the phobia of rats. I'm also facing the issue of heights. I can go so high, but I'm not going to look down because I might go through some kind of panic. So that's called acrophobia or acrophobia. That's ACRO, P like Paul, HO, B like boy, IA. I'm breaking it down as slow as I can here. That's the fear of heights. Okay. And then water, of course, aquaphobia, that you have the fear of water. Okay, that's something I was challenged with as well because I almost drowned in Galveston. There at the place there in Galveston, at the I don't know what you call it, but anyway, that's why I almost drowned at. But aquaphobia, and then falling. Sometimes this is related to Basophobia. That means a fear of falling or walking too unstable. But maybe that's something that I didn't realize that I'm dealing with. But fear of falling is called basophobia or basophobia, and that's B like boy, A, S O, P like Paul, H O, B like boy, I A. Okay, that's falling types. And then closed spaces, claustrophobia. Everybody know that one. Especially when you got to go and get these types of tests. You got to go inside these machines, to get these tests, these x-rays, these closed spaces, or in a room, even in an elevator. Claustrophobia, CLAUSTRO, P like Paul, H like ham, O, B like boy, IA, closed spaces. And then, of course, open public places. That's what I talked about earlier when I started this message. That open public space that you're not ready to socialize, you're not ready to get around a whole bunch of people. That's called agoraphobia. I may have said it wrong. Agoraphobia. A G like go, ORA, P like Paul, H like ham, O, B like boy, IA. Agoraphobia or agoraphobia. So these are psychological terms, which a whole bunch of people don't really care about that. But I want to make sure those who may be facing this can get an understanding. So this doesn't mean that you're going insane or that you're crazy. It means that your brain has learned danger in this type of association from where you've been. And sometimes trauma, childhood experiences, near drowning like I was, these frightening incidents that this rat I'm being chased after with this rat, and these repeated warnings that, I'm feeling that my body is telling me, warning, warning, you're going to drown. Don't go to that. Look at the water. It's going to make you feel like you're going to drown, and then seeing other people panic, this may make you panic. The second kind is called trauma-based fear response. Okay. This sounds like some of what I may have been facing as a young girl. Trauma based. For example, I nearly drowned, like I said. And now, when in water, my body says, or even just sitting near or too close to water, and that's why I don't do those type of cruises and going on boats because I'm feeling like I'm not gonna make it out. That may be a trauma trigger. It's not a state of fear. The brain stores this type of trauma in our memories, and the nervous system starts to react. Symptoms like a racing heart, you feel panic, you feel hot, you're sweating, your chest get tired, you feel like this dread come all over you. You feel like you want to escape it. I got to get away from here. You start shaking. You have these mental pictures in your head about what happened a while back and what you experienced. This is called trauma response. Okay, it's a normal thing. Your body that went through something, it don't want it no more. You condition to this fear response. You have this trigger response. And then the next one that we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes is the anxiety anticipatory fear. I'm going to get into that in just a few minutes because I wanted to make sure that everybody have a revelation about why this is so important so you can get an understanding about what God is trying to show you. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to come back with part two because I want to make sure that you don't miss this when I start to talk about the anticipatory and the anxiety fear. Please get to part two. This is what you're going to get a chance to understand about why it's so important that we understand the difference in the two. Okay. And why people are dealing with this and not want to face the fact like I was that I had a fear of falling. I'll be right back.